Thuỵ, a realm spoken of in hushed tones, a place where the very air hums with an ancient, untamed energy. It is a land that exists on the fringes of reality, a tapestry woven from myth and legend where the impossible becomes commonplace and the extraordinary is simply part of the everyday. Imagine a world where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural blur, where the creatures of folklore roam free and the laws of physics bend to the will of magic. This is Thuỵ, a land of breathtaking beauty and untold peril, a place that both captivates and terrifies in equal measure. Even the bravest creatures only whispered about this land. They spoke of its wonders in hushed tones, their voices barely audible above the rustling leaves and the murmur of the wind. For Thuỵ held secrets best left undisturbed, mysteries that could unravel the minds of even the most stalwart adventurers. The very name of the land was enough to send shivers down the spines of seasoned travelers, for it was a place where the line between reality and illusion was constantly shifting, where the familiar could become alien in the blink of an eye. Giant mountains, capped with snow, touched the sky, their peaks piercing the heavens like the spires of ancient cathedrals. These colossal sentinels stood guard over the land, their icy summits shrouded in an ethereal mist that seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. The mountains were more than just geological formations, they were living entities, their rocky faces etched with the stories of countless ages, their slopes teeming with hidden caves and forgotten pathways, their tops hidden in swirling fog. This fog was no ordinary weather phenomenon, it was a magical veil, a shimmering curtain that concealed the true nature of the mountains, obscuring their peaks from prying eyes and guarding the secrets that lay within. Legends spoke of hidden temples and forgotten cities nestled high in the mountains, accessible only to those who could navigate the treacherous mists and decipher the ancient riddles they held. Below, old forests stretched out, a mix of green and darker green. These were not mere woodlands, but ancient primeval forests that had stood for millennia, their gnarled branches reaching towards the sky like the arms of ancient giants. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, casting the forest floor in a perpetual twilight, where strange and wondrous creatures roamed free, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Hidden waterfalls roared, their cascading waters plunging into crystal-clear pools, creating a symphony of sound that echoed through the forest. These were not ordinary waterfalls. Their waters shimmered with an ethereal glow, imbued with the magic of the land, and said to possess healing properties that could cure any ailment, filling rivers that twisted through the wild lands. These rivers were the lifeblood of Thuỵ, their waters flowing through the forests and mountains, nourishing the land and sustaining its inhabitants. They were not merely waterways, but living entities, their currents pulsing with the energy of the earth, and their depths concealing ancient secrets and forgotten treasures. This place was ruled by instinct, by who was strongest. Survival was the only law, and the creatures of Thuỵ were constantly vying for dominance, their battles echoing through the forests and mountains. The strong preyed on the weak, and only the most cunning and resourceful could hope to survive in this harsh and unforgiving land. But it was also magical, the air buzzing with ancient power. The very essence of Thuỵ was infused with magic, a palpable energy that could be felt in the rustling leaves, the flowing rivers, and the towering mountains. This magic permeated every aspect of life in the land, shaping its creatures, influencing its landscapes, and weaving its destiny. Here, animals talked, they dreamed, they built. They were not mere beasts driven by instinct alone, but sentient beings with their own cultures, societies, and aspirations. They formed tribes, built cities, and waged wars, their lives as complex and nuanced as those of any human civilization. They weren't just animals, they were tribes, each with its own unique customs, traditions, and beliefs. The night wolves, masters of stealth and shadow, their eyes glowing with an eerie luminescence in the darkness. The snow tigers, majestic and powerful, their white fur blending seamlessly with the snowy landscapes they called home. The firebirds, creatures of fire and passion, their feathers ablaze with the colors of a setting sun, and many more. Each tribe carved out its own territory, its own niche in the intricate tapestry of Thuỵ. Each one had special gifts. Some could control the elements, others could communicate with the spirits of the forest, and still others possessed the power to heal the sick and wounded. The night wolves, hidden in shadows and whispers, were sneaky and clever. They were masters of espionage and intrigue, their movements as silent as the falling snow, their motives shrouded in mystery. Their howls filled the valleys, a scary song of the wild heart of Thuỵ. It was a sound that spoke of freedom and danger, of the untamed spirit of the land, and of the ancient pact between the wolves and the moon. The snow tigers, with their white and silver fur, were graceful and fierce, embodying the spirit of the winter winds and the strength of the frozen mountains. Their paws leaving no marks in the fresh snow. They moved with a regal air, their presence commanding respect and awe, their every step a testament to their power and grace. And the firebirds, with feathers that glowed like a sunset, flew through the sky, their wings leaving trails of fire in their wake, their calls a song of fire and freedom. Their voices echoed through the heavens, a symphony of light and sound that inspired hope and ignited the imagination. But Thuỵ, even though it was beautiful, wasn't perfect. Beneath the surface of its enchanting landscapes and magical creatures lay a darkness, a shadow that threatened to consume the land. It was a dangerous place where life and death were always close. The balance between light and darkness was precarious, and the fate of Thuỵ hung in the balance, waiting for a hero to rise and restore harmony to the land. In the heart of a realm teeming with magic and wonder, where ancient forests whispered secrets to the wind and towering mountains kissed the sky, lay a land inhabited by extraordinary tribes. These were not ordinary creatures, but beings of myth and legend, each possessing unique abilities and a deep connection to the natural world. For a long time the tribes lived together, sharing the bounties of the land and coexisting in relative harmony. But it wasn't easy. The differences between the tribes, once a source of richness and diversity, began to sow seeds of discord. The wolves, fiercely independent and driven by instinct, often clashed with the tigers, proud and territorial guardians of their domain. The birds, soaring high above the fray, looked down upon the squabbles of the land dwellers with a mixture of amusement and concern. Beneath the surface of their shared existence, tensions simmered, threatening to erupt into open conflict. They hunted, each tribe relying on their unique skills and strategies to secure sustenance for their families. The wolves, masters of the chase, roamed the forests in packs, their keen senses guiding them to their prey. They gathered food, foraging for berries, nuts and roots, carefully preserving their resources for the harsh winter months. The squirrels, nimble and quick, scurried through the trees, collecting acorns and seeds with tireless energy. They protected their homes, fiercely defending their territories from intruders and safeguarding their young from danger. The bears, strong and protective, stood as sentinels at the edges of their forests, their watchful eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of threat. But they didn't trust each other. Whispers of suspicion and resentment echoed through the land, poisoning the bonds that once held the tribes together. The wolves eyed the tigers with envy, coveting their fertile hunting grounds. The tigers looked down upon the wolves with disdain, viewing them as unruly and uncivilized. Old fights never really ended. Scars, both physical and emotional, served as constant reminders of past grievances, fueling the flames of animosity. The memory of a stolen kill, a disputed border, or a perceived insult lingered in the hearts of the tribes, preventing them from truly moving forward. Then, something happened. A spark ignited the tinderbox of resentment, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the fate of the tribes. A fight over land, a seemingly insignificant dispute over a patch of fertile ground, escalated into a full-blown conflict. A stolen meal, a desperate act of survival in a time of scarcity, became the catalyst for open warfare. Suddenly, everyone was fighting. The pent-up frustrations and long-simmering resentments exploded in a frenzy of violence. The night wolves, led by the mean Alpha Fang, a ruthless and ambitious leader, stormed through the forests, their howls echoing through the trees as they sought to claim dominance over all. The snow tigers, led by the scarred Zarina, a fierce and battle-hardened warrior, fought with the fury of a blizzard, their claws tearing through the ranks of their enemies. The firebirds, led by Solara, a majestic and powerful sorceress, flew through the sky, dropping fire from above, their flames consuming everything in their path. The land was sad, its vibrant beauty marred by the scars of war. The once lush meadows were trampled and barren, the clear streams polluted with blood. Green forests burned, their ancient trees reduced to smoldering ashes, the air thick with smoke and the stench of destruction. Clear rivers turned red with blood, their life-giving waters tainted by the horrors of war, poisoning the land and its creatures. The air was filled with the sounds of fighting, a cacophony of roars, screeches, and the clash of weapons. Metal hitting metal, the clang of steel against steel echoing through the battlefields as warriors clashed in desperate struggles for survival. Bones breaking and screams, the agonizing cries of the wounded and dying piercing the din of battle, a constant reminder of the terrible cost of war. Years turned into decades, the war dragging on with no end in sight, consuming generations and leaving behind a legacy of hatred and despair. The seasons themselves seemed to cry, the skies weeping with endless rain, as if mourning the loss of innocence and the destruction of the land. But even in all the fighting, there was a little bit of hope, a flicker of light in the darkness, a whisper of peace amidst the chaos. The elders, the wise ones, the keepers of ancient knowledge and the guardians of tradition, watched sadly, their hearts heavy with sorrow. They had seen too much fighting, too much bloodshed, too much senseless destruction, too much pain, too much loss, too many lives wasted in the pursuit of power and vengeance. It was time for peace, time to heal the wounds of the past and forge a new future, a future where the tribes could live together in harmony once more. The question was, after so much bloodshed, was peace even possible? The land of Thuỵ was once a tapestry of vibrant life, a symphony of diverse ecosystems and creatures. But a shadow had fallen, a long and bitter conflict that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their world. Whispers of discontent turned to skirmishes. Skirmishes escalated into battles, and soon, the land was scarred by endless war. Deep in the whisperwood, where giant old trees stood guard, their roots intertwined with the very essence of the land, a glimmer of hope began to flicker. These weren't just ordinary trees, they were ancient sentinels, witnesses to countless seasons, their silent wisdom a beacon in the encroaching darkness. They had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, the ebb and flow of peace and war, and their hearts ached for the suffering of the creatures below. And so, under the watchful gaze of these ancient guardians, the elders met. They came from all over Thuỵ, from the sun-drenched savannas to the frost-kissed peaks, each tribe carrying the weight of their people's hopes and fears. The journey was long and arduous, fraught with the dangers of a land torn apart by conflict, but the promise of peace spurred them onward. Their fur gray, a testament to the years of hardship and worry etched upon their faces. Each wrinkle told a story of battles fought, of losses endured, of the relentless struggle for survival. Their eyes showing the pain they had seen, the countless tragedies that had befallen their tribes. The light of hope was dimming, replaced by a weariness that threatened to consume them all. They carried the burden of leadership, the responsibility for the lives of their people, and the weight of a world teetering on the brink of destruction. They weren't there as leaders, adorned in their ceremonial garb, wielding the symbols of power and authority, but as tired creatures who wanted the fighting to stop, who yearned for a future where their children could laugh and play without the shadow of war looming over them. They came seeking solace, seeking understanding, seeking a way to break the cycle of violence that had plagued their land for generations. Everyone waited to hear what they would say, their hearts pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds. Their voices, usually strong, resonating with the authority of their positions, were now rough and quiet, strained by years of shouting commands and delivering somber news. They spoke not as rulers but as individuals, sharing their deepest fears and their most fervent desires. They talked about how pointless the fighting was, how it had only brought pain and suffering to all involved, regardless of which side they were on. They recounted the battles fought over trivial matters, the resources squandered in the pursuit of meaningless victories, the lives lost in the name of pride and vengeance. About all the animals who had died, their names etched into the collective memory of their tribes, their absence a constant reminder of the futility of war. They spoke of the mothers who had lost their sons, the children who had grown up without fathers, the families torn apart by the relentless conflict. They talked about needing to work together, to put aside their differences and unite for the common good, to build a future where peace and prosperity could flourish. They envisioned a world where resources were shared, where knowledge was exchanged, where cooperation replaced competition, to understand each other, to bridge the gaps of language and culture that had separated them for so long, to learn from each other's strengths and support each other's weaknesses. They recognized that true strength lay not in domination, but in unity, so their children could live happily, free from the fear of war, able to explore their potential and build a brighter tomorrow, not just survive in a world consumed by hatred and violence. They dreamed of a world where their children could play together, learn together, and grow together, forging bonds of friendship that would transcend tribal boundaries. Not just survive but thrive, to build a society where every creature had the opportunity to reach their full potential, where creativity and innovation flourished, where the beauty of their world could be celebrated and preserved. After many days of talking, of sharing stories and shedding tears, of debating and compromising, a consensus began to emerge. The sun rose and set countless times, painting the sky with hues of hope and despair as the elders wrestled with the weight of their decision. Under the watchful trees, their ancient eyes gleaming with anticipation, a new path forward began to take shape. The trees seemed to whisper their approval, their leaves rustling in a gentle breeze, as if encouraging the elders to embrace the promise of peace. They made the Deep Forest Pact, a sacred agreement that would forever alter the course of their history. It wasn't about giving up their identities, their cultures, their traditions, but about surviving together, about recognizing their shared humanity, about embracing the strength that came from their diversity. Each tribe would keep its own ways, its own customs, its own unique identity, its own land, its own traditions, its own place in the tapestry of Thuỵ. But from now on, they would work together, sharing their resources, their knowledge, and their skills to heal and build a better future. A future where peace reigned supreme, where cooperation thrived, and where the creatures of Thuỵ could finally live in harmony. A future where the whispers of the past would fade, replaced by the joyful songs of a united people. The Deep Forest Pact was new and easy to break. Just when the fighting stopped, something new happened. This time the danger wasn't from other tribes, but from the land itself. The mountains, quiet for so long, woke up. Volcanoes erupted, turning day into night. The ground shook, causing floods that washed everything away. Huge storms raged as if angry about the fighting. Everyone was scared. The Deep Forest Pact, so new, was about to fall apart. Old feelings of anger and distrust came back. Why should they help those who were their enemies? Wasn't it more important to save themselves? But even with all the destruction, the Deep Forest Pact held. They had learned from the fighting and the new danger that they needed each other to survive. The night wolves, used to the dark forests, were the first to help. Their howls, once scary, now warned and called for help. The snow tigers, very strong, cleared paths through the mess. The firebirds, flying through the storms, looked for survivors. Side by side, old enemies worked together, becoming friends. They rescued others, shared what little food they had, and helped each other feel better. They weren't night wolves, snow tigers, or firebirds anymore. They were just survivors, working together to rebuild their world.